Thank you for coming to another Reltio community show. I'm Chris Detzel. We have two special guests today. We have our Senior VP of Product Management here at Reltio, Venki Subramanian. We also have Anthony Colichio. He's a Senior Value Consultant here at Reltio. And today's topic will be leading your data strategy with business outcomes. Go to the next slide. So as usual, there are rules, and the rules still apply, the same as usual, but keep yourself on mute. All questions should be asked in the chat, and or feel free to take yourself off of mute and ask your question. We are recording this as usual. It will be posted to the community, and I'll be sending out the follow-up maybe today, but for sure by tomorrow. Next slide. And we do have a few things coming up this month, pretty much this month, and one in August, and I'm scheduling some more in August. I'm out for 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of August, so we will not have any shows. A lot of people are out too, so, but the upcoming events is today's show is leading your data strategy with business outcomes. On the 20th, and I know that a lot of folks are very interested in this feature. It's a new feature that we have on increasing your productivity and improving CX with automated householding. Really excited about that. And of course, we have another feature around machine learning, but leveraging pre-trained machine learning models for efficient entity resolution. Also excited about that one as well. And then on the 23rd, we have a show, more of a thought leadership show like today, around from foundation to future, harnessing MDM for democratic data governance. Bet you can't say that 5 times real fast. And then lastly, Reltio is sponsoring a conference called Data Driven. It's a modern data management conference from October 3rd through 5th. It's going to be in my neck of the woods in Dallas, Texas. I'll push the link for you to take a look at it after my little spiel here. A lot of great speakers. A lot of our customers actually are speaking. And a lot of really good stuff there. Hopefully you can make it. And I'm going to stop there, Anthony and Venki, and let you guys kick it off.
Awesome. Okay. I'll kick it off and I'll hand it over to Anthony. We have a lot of content to cover today. This is a really exciting topic, a topic that we have heard multiple times during our discussions with many of you, many of our customers. I have attended a few CDO events, and in many of the discussions, one of the common themes that I've noticed is really how do we define our data strategy and design our programs with business outcomes in mind. It sounds so intuitive and sounds so simple, but in fact, it's really challenging. And we have seen that many of the programs actually go sideways, do not get to the outcomes they intend because of that lack of alignment to business outcomes from the very beginning. So that's the topic we thought we'll walk you through. It's a lot of conceptual content around how we have worked with our customers in helping them approach this in a more systematic way. So first few minutes, we'll just provide some context around what the problems are, and then we will switch straight into some concepts and frameworks on how we can apply this. So first and foremost, I think you all know that, sorry, if you go back to the one slide, thanks. Organizations today are navigating great complexity, which basically means that every organization has to deal with a lot of changing dynamic environment and external pressures, at the same time balancing a lot of the internal pressures around their investment resources and things like that. Every company is becoming digital first. They have to be innovating constantly or be disrupted. And the speed of business is increasing, and the change of pace of those businesses are also increasing, right? So these are all common things that all of you are aware of. And how do companies react to it? If you go to the next slide, the change drivers for most industries, if you look at it, are disrupting traditional models. So the business models are changing in many cases. We have seen over the last 3 or 4 years, a lot more businesses going digital first or digital only. Accelerated by events like our pandemic. Lot of changes like subscription models, even in areas that we have not expected before. lot more customer intimacy, which is a need, which is the expectation, the baseline expectation today. Everybody expects an Amazon-like experience or Google-like experience. That's kind of become the gold standard, or companies like Uber and many others that we are all familiar with in our day-to-day life, right? So when we interact with any company, no matter how big or small, we expect the same kind of experience and same kind of agility. The regulations are also evolving, which is another thing that businesses have to contend with, right? So as they continue to change their business models and collect more data, they have to be aware and mindful of, how do they understand the evolving regulations and meet them. They have to continuously innovate and improve their operational efficiency. And there is a lot more intelligence and automation being added to every aspect of the operations today. And like I said, customer experience in a digital world are, no less than the typical consumer companies or experiences that we deal with every day. So if we go to the next slide, companies react to it by focusing a lot on that customer centricity, excellence in customer experience, and things like that. Along with that, they also focus on improving their own operational efficiency and the agility, the ability to change at the pace of their business, and all of this while keeping the compliance and trust and risk management kind of capabilities at top of their mind as well, right? Now, if you think about all of these initiatives, one of the things that is common across all, or is a foundational capability for all of this, is the insight-ready, high-quality, timely data, right? Data is really the underpinning of enabling a lot of these things, whether it's a customer experience we're talking about, whether it's operational efficiency improvements we're talking about. All of that requires foundational data, and that is why there is so much of focus and attention around data and data ecosystems nowadays, right? There is this overly used cliche that we have all heard about: data as the new oil. It's not the new oil. I mean, it is a strategic capability if leveraged in the right manner, and that means the data needs to be high quality, timely, available at all places, right? So if you go to the next slide, you will see that every successful initiative starts with trusted data. And we talked about data of all types, but for the purposes of this session, we will focus a little bit more on the foundational data elements, or the core data that we see across all of these initiatives, like your customer, product, asset, location, supplier, and things like that. And it doesn't mean that the other types of data is not important or those data initiatives are not. It's just for the purposes of focusing our conversation on some specific aspects today. Next one, Anthony. So how do companies leverage, or what do companies need to do to leverage data as a strategic capability? There are a few key things that we have observed, and we've been observing in conversations with our customers and working with our customers. First and foremost, especially as we talk about this core data that is foundational to a lot of those initiatives that we talked about earlier, it starts with breaking down silos. It starts with empowering the different parts of the organization to have the access to the right data at the right time. We have heard the concept of democratizing data in organizations a lot. What it really means is making the right data available to the right consumers at the right point of consumption, right? With, of course, the quality and things like that. The other part is, how do companies ensure that while they build their data infrastructure, it is flexible and it is agile? They rely on cloud-based data infrastructures, and that provides them with continuous innovation, with the flexibility, agility, and the modern capabilities they need. And trust and security has to be foremost. So these are a few of the strategic capabilities, or these are the few of the capabilities that are needed to leverage data in organizations for strategic purposes. So we talked about sort of, what is needed. Everybody is aware of all of these things. So what is getting in the way? Let's go to the next slide. Again, if we talk specifically about the concept of MDM as one of the data disciplines within that broader data ecosystem, there is this very concerning, sort of almost an extreme statement that was made by one of the lead analysts. Talks about more than 75% of the MDM programs will fail to meet business expectations because of failure to connect MDM to business value. Now, there are two things that stands out, right? Business value and business expectations. So the question that I ask is MDM considered to be challenging because are we trying to build an ivory tower? Are we trying to build this mythical, the amazing sort of, single unified high quality data repository across all of our systems in a highly structured, governed manner and things like that. And leading with that hypothesis or leading with that as our value proposition, somewhere missing the whole point of why we are doing it, right? And that is why we thought we'll focus this session today on really digging a little deeper into the aspect of, business value, business outcomes, and how do we work back from there and build our data strategies and programs, right? So how do we do that? Let's go to the next slide, Anthony. First is, I think I would like all of you to ask for just a little bit this question to yourself, right? What kind of goals do you have for your data initiatives? There are a few statements on the left that you can see, and some of these are extracted out of RFPs or conversations that we've had with customers and prospects and things like that. There are goals that are set, which starts with creating a 360-degree view of our customer, or single unified repository for product data across business units, or enterprise knowledge graph of customers, contacts, and assets in a single repository, things like that. You can also see some goals on the right side that talks about improving cross-sell and upsell within a customer base by a certain percentage, supported by white space analysis and streamlined customer engagement, right? There is no mention of the data or the technology capabilities. It talks about the outcomes that is driving the strategy, or shortening supplier onboarding to less than a day. We want new suppliers to be onboarded seamlessly into our system within a day, or driving cost savings by consolidating vendors and creating better negotiating power. Which one? And this is a rhetorical question, right? You as experts in this area or practitioners in this area, you very well know that when a program is defined with those business outcomes in mind, there is a much higher chance of success, because it, one, creates a higher degree of alignment within the organization. It gets more buy-in, especially from senior leadership, because they understand exactly how this is going to impact the key outcomes of growth, operational efficiency, or risk and compliance that they are focused on. And it also helps you really prioritize the right set of capabilities that you need to invest in and focus on, right? So a bit of a rhetorical question, but this is really, I believe, the crux of the problem. How are we framing our problem statements and how are we framing our solutions against it is really critical. And it really determines whether those programs are going to be successful in the end or not. So what we are going to do for most part of today is really walk you through different sort of concepts and frameworks that helps us think through that in a more structured way. But I love this idea of working backwards. A concept popularized by Amazon in the world of product management, where they talk about the end outcome and sort of work back from there. So in the world, in the area of data and data strategy, you can think of it as starting with the business outcomes, just like some of the statements that we saw on the previous slide, defining the specific metrics and KPIs that measure the outcomes. Like, how do we know that we are meeting the business outcome, meeting or beating the business outcome, right? It starts with the baseline metrics. Where are we today? And what is the target? Where do we want to be in the future? And to achieve that, we need to clearly understand what are the parts of the process or the experience, the business process or experience or applications that is going to contribute or change in a material way that is going to drive towards that outcome, right? And then we have to understand, okay, those are the business processes and applications. What kind of foundational data do we need? And the governance requirements around data, like, how do we bring the data together? How do we provide access to, and what frequency? How do we improve the quality? All aspects of data management then can be applied, working back from those specific business process or application improvements and what kind of data is needed. And this is not limited to the data that you manage within your own companies, but also the third-party data sources for data quality improvements, for data enrichment, and things like that. But the key thing is that last part is really the last part, right? If we don't start with data and data governance requirements first and declare that that is the outcome. It is an enabling capability. The outcomes are really the business outcomes, and the measurement starts with the metrics and KPIs. But it doesn't mean that we don't have measurements at the lowest level. Even at the data and governance levels, you will define your specific data metrics or governance and quality metrics and things like that. But it all needs to tie back to the end outcomes. So, Anthony, I'll hand it over to you. Sort of, walk us through some of the concepts or frameworks that you help our customers with as you work with them as a value consultant.
Yeah, thanks, Venki. And more often than not, when I've worked with so many of you, when I show up, the technical team is kind of floating down the river in their own little world. We're talking about API endpoints and crosswalks and governance. And when I ask simple questions like, why are we on this river? Where are we going? No one seems to be able to answer, because we're kind of stuck in our own little specification world, really insulated, and we're floating down the river. And no one remembers that at the end of the river, like this picture is actually a picture of the Niagara River. It leads to a waterfall. Like more often than not, I've seen teams waste 6, 12, even 18 or 24 months specifying the whole thing. They get to the end, they fall off the waterfall because the business is like, we don't need this, or we needed this 2 years ago. So it's really hard. I've managed a data platform as a product myself before. I have the gray hair to show for it. I tried to make this as simple as possible, step by step, very practical information coming up. You don't have to fall off the waterfall. We could do technology better. And each step of the way, we're going to look downstream first, like always think about the last thing first. And how are we going to get there? And what are we going to do? We're going to do the minimum to get there. And we're going to document consensus as we go. If it's not documented, it doesn't exist. First, I'm going to give you the big picture, and then we'll drill in on each step. Data strategy step number 1, we need to set a vision within some context. That yellow box is the context. It's market or organization or brand context. And we need a vision for our data platform, some business goals, some pain from people within our organization. And we need people. This is the number one problem I actually see across our customer base. There's no or limited access to cross-functional stakeholders. Once we have that vision seated within a context, then we can start discovery. We can start prioritizing. We start to specify. And then once we specify the minimum thing, we can slot it, deliver, measure. And then one of the very, very infrequently, I'd say maybe 10 to 20% of our customers are actually measuring success, course correcting, evangelizing, and repeating. Most of the time when I show up, technology is in the specify box, floating down the river, about to fall off the waterfall that should have been pretty straightforward slotting and resourcing. That's the big picture. And I'm going to start with step 1. We'll kind of go through it. Anthony, what are some easy tips, examples, or how do I know if I'm doing this right or wrong to set a vision within context? And this is a great time to post some commentary or questions in the chat, and I'll take a brief pause at the end of each section to see how we're doing. Part 1, set a vision within some context. Anthony, what the heck are you talking about? How do I understand market, organization, and brand context? So here's some tips. Look downstream first. What's going on in the world? What's your organization trying to do in the first place? What does your data platform want to be when it grows up? Like, what does it mean for your business in 3 years? That's really important. You don't have to spend years thinking about this. Maybe just 5-10 minutes goes a long way. Do the minimum amount of research in the middle there. Read your latest investor report. They're very easy to understand. There's lots of pictures usually, lots of numbers. It's great. Ask Google, CNBC, ChatGPT. Hey, what's my organization trying to do? This is actually working really well. Like, it works about 3 out of 4 times. It's pretty precise. When confused, you could also ask your management. And here's the piece where it kind of goes off the rails most of the time. Ask yourself, who cares? Who might care within your organization that we have supply chain challenges or customer care inefficiencies? Summarize why you need to do in just a couple of sentences. Remember what Mark Twain said about, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one instead. Try summarizing with a picture. It goes a long way. Part 1, we're going to set the context of, come up with some ideas. What are we trying to accomplish? What do we want to be when we grow up? So an example, I created this fictional B2B cybersecurity company called Company Name. An idea might be optimizing B2B go-to-market operations. You could have 2 or 3 of these if you're not sure. It's okay. Pull some images off your website, have fun with it, take some guesses about, what could this be in a few years? You'd be surprised, even after 5-10 minutes of thinking about it and being creative, it's amazing what people come up with. Another effective thing that I found is right after that, it's great to summarize what you've heard recently from leadership. Maybe the CEO had an internal meeting recently, and in minutes 14 to 16, she was just talking about all kinds of challenges for this year. There was increased vendors, and we're struggling to manage them. There's new risks in China. There's increasing customer churn. There's operational debt, and our margin decreased by 3 basis points. Do you have to know what all this means? No, absolutely not. You don't. Do you have to know how you're going to be able to help these people? No, you don't. Just start off with, what's our problems? What are the pains around the organization? What are we trying to accomplish? It's really easy just to kind of get sucked in and gravitate toward the easy things, to float down the river. But it's amazing if you just take a moment and try to understand what's going on in your organization and have this richer understanding. It lends itself to solutions. So setting context, you're doing it wrong if it's in your head, if it's for data or IT professionals only, if there's lots of tech talk, or if you haven't met anybody new. You're doing it right if it's been co-developed and documented. Anyone can read it, especially employees or investors or customers. There's lots of cross-functional terms. Maybe you don't understand them all, that's okay. There's numbers, symbols like dollar signs, percentage marks, even question marks. I don't know what we can do here. Pictures are great. And you're starting to build a diverse cross-functional audience that has pain. Maybe you don't know you can help these people in supply chain management or patient experience, but you know they're struggling. And you start to understand some path to executive sponsorship. And hence, executive sponsorship is not the same as an allocated budget. Once I kind of have that context, I can plant my vision within the context. I can start to understand business goals by looking downstream first. What are we trying to accomplish? How will we measure success? By when and with which resources? Have they been pre-allocated? Meeting new people suddenly generates a wealth of ideas. Stakeholder pain, do the minimum. Hey, why can't you just do this now? Why can't you just send one bill to this one vendor? Why are you sending them 40 bills? Help me understand. Understand those negative consequences. What does it mean when they send 40 bills to the same vendor? Come up with 1 or 2 people within your organization who are downstream, who can be terrific definition customers. You understand what they're trying to accomplish, how they measure success. They're struggling, they need help. And then document consensus. Again, if it's not documented, it doesn't really exist. And KPIs are always the thing that goes wrong at this stage. What are the leading non-technical engagement metrics? We'll get to that in a second. What are the lagging business KPIs? Do we have some idea of benchmarking? Really quick, people will tell you 3 different types of KPIs. If you're talking to your executives, they're usually talking about increasing revenue or reducing cost or mitigating risk. And at the bottom end there, you could see that technical folks usually care about data error rates or API performance SLOs. Or maybe there's people within your marketing organization or vendor management who talks about NPS or click-through rates or CSAT. What we really want are those things in the middle, the things that tie together people's engagement KPI pain with what the CEO is trying to do, like increasing dollar rates 1% over the second half. We'll measure that in Salesforce. Decreasing fully loaded data stewardship costs over 34% by 2025, mitigating operational risks in China over the next 3 years. So we want to design top down. What does our leadership care about? What should we actually be working on over the next coming couple of years? Find those people at the bottom who are having pain, tie the two together. I like to start with the business outcomes. Hopefully at this point, maybe you have some ideas. They always start with a verb like increase or reduce or mitigate. They have numbers in them. They have time frames. When I meet people in the organization who talk about projects, you know what? Maybe you could help out with the Vendor 360 project or the next best recommendation initiative. Oh, we're doing the company GPT thing. That's the time to say, oh, tell me more. What are you trying to accomplish? How do you measure success? Don't worry about if you can help them or not. Really just listen and try to understand and document their pain. Like, why can't you just do this? Like, what? Oh, there's more risk in China? Okay. You're doing lots of manual data manipulation? Okay. It takes you 3 weeks and 10 people to onboard vendors? Okay. Document them out. Don't worry, just make it TBD on the solution. That's really important in setting a vision within a context. At the end, you can summarize it all up. This is just 3 sentences, and it's good for anyone in your organization. It starts off with the situation. Lots of global threats, demand's increasing, we're struggling to scale, there's lots of friction between operations and our customer journey moments. Great. Take some position. Tell them how you think we might be able to help. Profitably scalable B2B go-to-market operations start with trusted data. And then kind of list out some of the actions: open, secure, high performance. We're going to reduce fully loaded management costs and mitigate those risks. And we're going to accelerate with a forward-focused AI foundational platform in the second half of next year. Suddenly you sound brilliant, and all you really did was interview 2 or 3 people and take some and do a little bit of research. You know you set a vision within a context wrong if you're feeling comfortable and certain. Let me repeat that again. You're doing it wrong if you're comfortable. You're doing it wrong if you feel certain. You're documenting how. Oh yeah, success, we'll figure that out after we fall off the Niagara Falls. You're doing it right if you're feeling a little scared or confused or curious. Oh, this is interesting. Can I help? I actually don't know. You have sentences that starts with verbs for your goals. We increase or decrease a thing over a certain period. Here's what it's been. Oh, we're trying to increase our CSAT scores from whatever they were to something new. So we're designing success. We're doing design top down to drive an outcome. I'm going to take a moment. Are there any questions or
Anthony, yeah, but I don't see any questions in the chat, but I have just a question, right? Or 2 things. One is, if you covered a lot of really rich content there, you started talking about it was basically setting the vision within a context. And you talked about how do you understand and set the context with a lot of the customer research and things like that. And then you talked about setting a specific vision. Can you just quickly summarize, just a quick recap, maybe the key things from the first section that you covered?
Absolutely. Look downstream first. What is my platform going to be when it grows up? What does that mean for my business? What's going on in my business? Tie those the things together and you're on the right track. Then you need to find some friends. Who's struggling in the organization to do that thing? Who's really having supply chain challenges or patient care challenges or whatever those challenges are that align to your vision for the future? You can have a few visions you don't even know yet. Go find some people, find 1 or 2 people downstream who you can work with and deliver something valuable fast.
Great.
I'll keep rolling. And if there's any questions, concerns, comments, drop them in the chat. Discovery, prioritization, and specification. We're almost to specification. I know I have mostly a technical audience here and you're really excited to get there, but let's do some discovery and prioritization first. Here's some tips and examples and how to know if you're doing right or wrong. Look downstream first. What are those future user stories based on the goals and pain that you identified in the first step? Well, we're trying to increase our dollar retention rates. Who does that? Customer success? Sales operations? Who cares about that? Find those people and say, why can't we just do that? Well, I have to, something about Excel usually, and I have to import, export. Start to ideate with them, what would be a better thing to do? What if you didn't have 10 Excel sheets you had to try to manually match and merge? Could you increase your dollar retention rates? Prioritize these user stories. Once you have a bunch of these user stories, start to prioritize them. This is really hard when you first do it to document consensus, but you get the hang of it after a while, kind of like back of the envelope math. What would be the value of this? What would be the cost of this? You don't have to be precise. You can do ranges or minimums or question marks. Just ask yourself, well, if we could have 3 or 4 less people manually manipulating data and they each make $100,000 a year, we could save $300,000 a year. Start to prioritize the user stories as must, should, or may. To do this, to accomplish this objective with this user story, we must have this. We should have this. Maybe we need this. That's really important because we can go faster and deliver more value faster. Now it's start time to think about leading technical engagement metrics. Like, do I need to improve data quality or completeness or performance? And then on the right, start to specify those user stories. Do the minimum thing. We're not going to break down every silo. Let's not spend years breaking down every silo. Stop. Figure out I like to start with the end. What's the one more activation channel we might need? Or what's the one more domain or feature function we might need? Or the one more data source or 2 data sources we might need? Or what people and process impacts that we need to change to increase dollar retention rates? But it's always rooted back into what we're trying to accomplish. It's important to be ruthlessly focused on what we're trying to accomplish and do the absolute minimum thing to deliver a result to your organization. I like to do a high-level landscape. This is like, so anyone can read it, show which data sources are coming in, show which activation channels are coming out. I always like to start with the right whenever I'm dealing with multiple stakeholders. Cool, we're doing the reporting use case. Are we doing the Salesforce thing next? Question mark. Are we hooking this right up to the customer web portal next? What would really help us increase dollar retention rates? Oh, Salesforce, Anthony. Okay, great. Forget about the web portal. That's part of the roadmap. Let's just do the Salesforce thing next. Great. So in order to increase dollar retention rates, maybe we need to understand what products your customers have in the first place. Great idea. Let's bring in the products. Let's set up attribution. Let's improve data completeness with next best product in that CRM as fast as possible. We'll do China later.
So Anthony, one thing I notice here again is, here we are starting to talk about the user stories and getting a little bit into the solution space, right? How do we do it? What are we going to do kind of things? But you're still anchoring everything back to those business outcomes. You keep referring back to net dollar retention rate as an example, as the key business outcome. So
absolutely, because there's going to be more stakeholders show up and they're going to say, no, we want to do the web portal first. And it's very clear. You could say, oh, you didn't want that $1.5 million in dollar retention? Question mark. Right. If they say, oh, if we do the web portal, that's $10 million. You say, okay, you'll do that next. Suddenly it becomes clear to everyone what needs to be done next as fast as possible. It's no longer floating down the river and falling off the falls. So you're doing it wrong if people and process have been omitted. You're doing it right if you can have user stories, like as a persona, someone in sales operations, I must or should or may need to scrud, search or view or update or delete some piece of information on some condition. Like as a customer success manager, I should be able to see the next best product when it's time for that customer to buy. That's very clear. You don't have to be a technical person to understand. It could be the CEO, it could be someone in sales, it could be someone in data or IT. Everybody goes, oh, that's what that means. Cool. If you're focused on consolidating data, you're probably doing it wrong. If you're focusing about activating data and you happen to need some to consolidate some data because you're activating data, you're probably doing it right. Everything is a high priority. That's doing it wrong. If you have a $ value versus cost for every story, you're probably doing it right. If everything is a high priority, nothing is a high priority, and you're just floating down the river to fall off the falls. Here's a hint. Reporting changes are usually cheaper than operational one because there's no people involved. People and process are always the hardest thing. However, if you're going to make millions of more dollars with that Salesforce update, people love to do the changes. Here's one that happens every time it feels like, let's specify everything. Let's POC everything. We'll have 10 domains and 1,000 sources. We'll integrate everything with everything. And I go, why? And they go, we don't know. Stop it. Like the next thing to do, just specify that and keep the vision in mind. Like if we're just trying to increase dollar retention rates, maybe just add Salesforce as an activation channel, or maybe just include products in your data attribution. Just think about the next thing, do the minimum.
I think the last part, Anthony, that's so many times, unfortunately, we have all heard that's kind of referring back to the ivory tower analogy that I brought up, right? I'm going to create this wonderful repository of all the information across all these sources and all of that. And then if you ask the question about, so to do what, and that's where it falls short, unfortunately. So again, I'm not saying that that's the norm today, but I know that the more forward-leaning, thoughtful data leaders obviously understand all of these things, but it's a good reminder of what, like if you see some of these things, then you're probably going wrong.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. I would say over the last several years, it's gone from maybe 10% of customers who are doing it well to about maybe 20, 25% with it increasing because of everything is always changing really fast now.
Right.
with advanced analytics, AI, open predictive analytics workbenches. It's moving so much faster. And if you're going slow, if you're POCing everything, like your competition has already blown you by. So I'm gonna pause here. Are there any questions? Or anyone can put in chat that you're still listening. That make me feel good. Or is there any? Am I doing this right or wrong? Chris, do you want to take a moment to?
Yeah, as of now, there's no questions, and I think you're doing fine. People are just listening, taking it in, I think, and yeah, stellar. So thanks, Frank.
Oh, Frank says something?
Yeah, he said stellar content. Great
Hey,
content.
okay. Thank you, Frank.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, I just needed to get a little emotional help. Thank you, Frank. It's people.
Keep going.
Okay, where are we? All right, so this is the time. So most of the technical audiences love to specify, and then they get shot down at slotting and resourcing. If we've done these previous steps, and this doesn't actually have to take long. Like I've seen customers do this in maybe even just a couple of weeks, and like they're off and running. Now it's time to slot and resource what you've specified. Now it's time to deliver. And most importantly, now it's time to go listen to our customers and say, did this work? Are we measuring success? How can we do better for the next iteration? Because if it's not going well, we need to course correct. If it's going well, we can evangelize inside our organization and build our data platform as an internal product. Here's some tips. As always, look downstream first. What's this customer story going to be? Like, what would you, like the best internal customer story, what would you imagine it to be? And if it were that thing, which other stakeholders can be helped just as it is? Like if you just found another person in customer care, for example, between brands, you could just say, hey, look, we just did this for the other brand. Do you want this too? This is the way we do it. This is how much it costs. This is the value of it. And then you can start to ask yourself, who can we help next? Based on what we've already done, maybe just adding one more data source or one more activation channel or just one more something. Who could we help next? Go downstream first. Part 2, do the minimum, slotting and delivery. Like, oops, I didn't update that. That's okay. Slotting and delivery. Just do the minimum thing. Just do the next most important thing. Don't ask for $1 zillion over 5 years to break down every silo. It's just, hey, we just need a line item in our service offering initiative, and we'll help you increase dollar retention rates. Key value milestones on the right to document consensus. Again, if it's not documented, it doesn't exist. Let's track leading indicators and lagging KPIs, and I'll give you an example of what that means. What's proactively scheduled check-ins over time? I found that customers who just go open their calendar and set 10-minute check-ins once, month, quarter, they do way better than the customers who aren't. So just like we designed top down, now at the end, this is the part we feel good. We're on the river again. We're going to verify bottom up. We're going to do some tech stuff. We're going to do some data stuff. We're going to improve profile completion rates or whatever it is. And then we'll see if we've impacted some NPS or CSAT or something. And then we're going to see if that means more dollar retention rates eventually. And then the CEO is going to have more revenue, and your investors and customers and employees will be happy. If those things didn't happen, we need to ask ourselves why. It's okay. And course correct. So we're going to we always design top down, verify bottom up. I start to see customers doing this or something like this. It's fantastic. So if you look at the top there, we're doing the B2B contacts to increase dollar retention rates, for example. All right, what are those technical key value milestones? We want to reduce contact records with low quality at the source. We want to increase contact deduplication rates division by division. Okay, well, what did we do? Did it work? Well, we started off with, 890K. We've reduced that number of contacts. So 5 to 6% were complete garbage. Done. Emil says we're done. We did it. Increased contact deduplication rates. Cindy says we went live on July 20th and over 3.5 million were merged. Terrific. Do we just stop there and say, okay, success, we go have some pizza? Maybe, but then let's just keep going. Oh, look, actually, that's pretty funny. On my deck, it's Frank who's reporting. Increase NPS, Frank. The benchmark was 52.3. Now it's 59.7. Customers are happier. That's the engagement metric. What about the dollar metric? That business objective that we started the process off with. If you remember way at the beginning, we had a list of objectives. We only accomplished one here, but that's okay because we increased dollar retention rates. The benchmark was 72. Now we're at 73. Great job, Frank. Sumit's working on the willingness to pay rates. We don't have that. That's okay. That's going to come out in October. We'll check in. Maybe that works. Maybe that doesn't. For those of you kind of, taking a holistic view of this, yes, Anthony, I just did a science experiment. I started off with a hypothesis. So this is the results. We're checking the results. Yes, things seem to be going well. Let's keep going. When things go well, you can have a customer success story to circulate and evangelize internally. It looks something like this. Our customer success department uncovered over $1 million in the third quarter in upsells. The challenge, the success department struggled to understand who had what product. About 6% of contact profiles had wrong email addresses. We couldn't even contact them. Over 3 million profiles were duplicates. What did we do? We incorporated 17 million new product records. We introduced some AI for the matching. We integrated the next best product recommendation into our main CRM. The results, customers are happy, plus 7%. Reduce fully loaded costs to deliver the insight, but $140,000 a year. Increased dollar retention rate 1% with $1.1 million in upsell. Did we do everything we wanted to? No, that's okay. But by starting off with the outcome on the right, now it's all tied together. There's the context. There's the vision within the context. There's the execution in the middle. There's the results on the right. And anyone else in your organization who has those challenges on the left. Maybe maybe you have a multi-brand portfolio. Maybe there's another success department. They go, oh, that's exactly my problem. It's a really quick win suddenly. It's a very straightforward path from pain to positive business outcome. And you're the person in the middle, which you become really powerful, frankly.
Anthony, I just want to take a moment to just rub a highlighter on a couple of things, right? One is many of you have seen these kind of customer success slides from your vendors where they claim to, have delivered the successful results with your customers. But I would really ask you to consider, are you doing this internally in your organization? Because Anthony, you mentioned the concept of evangelization, right? It is really powerful when you're able to show results and success metrics in the context of your business and tie that back to the different investments that you made and the capabilities you have created, not the other way around, right? We cannot just be, go around and sort of proudly pontificate or evangelize about the technology that we built if we don't start with the results and the outcomes, because that's what most people in the organizations understand. So can we all really start using these kind of formats or templates that you have seen from your vendors and use that for internal marketing, internal evangelization? Because then next time you go and ask for your budget and say, I need, $500,000 more to do this so that I can deliver this result, you're also building credibility of, there's more trust and belief in the ability for you to deliver those things because you've done these kind of customer stories and evangelizations internally. So this is a great example, but don't think of it as something that comes out at the end from your technology vendors and all that. This is something that we should all be creating internally, maybe at each milestone for the success and the results that you've delivered for your organization.
And if you start with the context and business outcome first, these things kind of write themselves. If you wait for the end, you're going to fall off the falls and no one's going to budget you for anything. It's not like I kind of just divined this out of the sky. This presentation is kind of what I wish I knew back when I was a young man doing application development for a large platform at a large bank. And the volume was just so much. I was like, I can't survive. How the heck am I going to do this? And it occurred to me that I had lots of customers who just needed the same thing. So I would say, oh, this customer did this. Do you need it too? And they go, yes. I go, cool, done. And suddenly my life become much better. I was like, wow, I don't have to work. I don't have to do the same work 10 times. I could do it once, make 10 people happy, and then go take a nap or go on vacation or whatever it is. So this is kind of like a love letter to my younger self. And I know you're doing it wrong if you have years to value. You're doing it wrong if you just assume it works. You throw it over the fence. Oh, this will work. You're going around talking about data quality and data performance and governance. You think it's done. Nothing in life is done, by the way. Spoiler alert. You have a static job title. You're doing it right if you get, it's a couple months to value. It's something much smaller, but something that people really care about. You're doing it right if you proactively schedule check-ins with your cross-functional audience, tracking KPIs and course correcting. When I did it myself, my biggest customers, I would meet with 10 minutes a week. All the auxiliary customers, I would meet with like an hour a month, something like that. What's going on? How you feeling? They talk to each other. It's like community. Hey, what you doing? What you up to? Hey, like it's a fun time. Even when things aren't going well, at least we all feel like we have the reins of power to make it better. Okay, so if you and your internal customer are co-evangelizing pain going away with dollar business outcomes with data democratization or something not called governance, you're really humming. Like, when you say governance, people go away, stop it, you're going to ruin my life. But if that customer success person comes up, goes around with you and says, oh, this data platform is the best thing since bread. We made over $1 million in the last quarter. We had all this pain. Now it doesn't, people are going to say, yes, give me some of that data, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. Like you're never done. If you're looping back to step one and recalibrating as you go based on feedback and KPIs and what's going on in the world, then you're really humming. Like the world is always changing around us. What's going on? That's that first step. If we can kind of get in tune with that and what our business is doing reactively or proactively to that, and our vision is aligned to that, suddenly you're not the person saying, we need data governance. People are coming to you to say, give us some whatever data democratization or whatever you want to call it. And you're probably getting a raise or a promotion. You're welcome, by the way. That happens a lot to people I work with. It's kind of a side benefit if people just seem to make more money. Say, hey, thank you. I'm like, you're welcome. So that's like my life for many years here, just in one slide. I wish I knew this 20 years ago. Questions about the process, about any piece? What are you guys thinking? If you're watching this on the recording, or whoever, tag me in a question on the community. I'll hop in and respond, or Venki will hop in and respond. We'll do our best.
Yeah, even if there are no questions, some good comments are always welcome.
I especially love constructive comments, like you could have done better, Anthony, so.
Great.
So Venki, Chris, any other thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I think I just want to go on and show sort of the framework that we have typically used, right? And this is more Reltio specific, but if you look at how we put all of that into practice and help our customers think through and build a roadmap. You've seen this framework as our customers many times. You've seen this probably in other webinars that we have presented, because we use this as a way to even inform the capabilities that we built within our different solutions, or the velocity packs, as we call it. And it all starts with really the business outcomes that you see on the right? Everything that is listed under the Activate data, which broadly falls into either growth, efficiency, or risk or compliance, are the typical initiatives that our customers are trying to drive with their unified data, with their unified core data especially, right? So we usually start the conversations there, and Anthony and other team members lead those conversations or help with those conversations with our customers and prospects. And it does two things, right? It really helps you pinpoint the specific initiatives that your company is investing in, right? And you can also sequence them. And if you want to prioritize or sequence them based on specific value, then you can also assign the KPIs, both baseline KPIs as well as target KPIs, that you want to accomplish within each one of them, right? So what are the metrics? What are the specific improvements that you're targeting? And based on that, it also serves as a prioritization mechanism. So think of this as your roadmap tool, where starting with the outcomes, identifying the specific outcomes that is a priority for your organization, identifying the metrics and leading and lagging indicators as well, and using that as a way to prioritize where you want to focus your energy and effort on, right? And Anthony mentioned this on almost every part of the framework of doing the minimum. Doing the minimum really is a way to focus the effort so that we are driving to the outcomes that we want to, instead of trying to do everything for everybody, right? And then you can work back from there to what foundational data is needed, what specific kind of attribution is needed, where does the data come from, what kind of third-party sources do I need to overlay on top of it to create that enriched, high-quality data foundation, all in service of that specific business outcome that you're trying to drive. So think of it as the road mapping tool. We call it the customer value framework because it again helps not only in the initial stages of identifying the specific initiatives and priorities and the roadmap, but it also can then serve as a way to evangelize and say, this is where we started, this is what we wanted to accomplish, this is where we are, this is how long it took. By the way, we can apply the same principles on these two next areas, and that's what we're going to go and target, right? So this is something that can be used to continue the conversation through every iteration within your organization. So there's just one sort of a one slide framing of the framework that Anthony shared with you over the last 30 minutes or so.
And for each of the, always look downstream first, pick one of those out. If you're not sure, maybe you haven't done your minimum research yet. There was an organization a few days ago that had a PII breach. Maybe that's top of mind for your organization. You're like, we could have helped if, I could help you if, we worked on, say, fraud detection. So seeding that business outcome and the context together, then starting to refine what you're trying to accomplish, how you measure success is really impactful. And you're not alone. Like, reach out to your success manager, reach out to me, reach out to somebody and say, I need help. Like, this makes sense, Anthony, but we're confused. Happy to hop in and see if I can't help you refine some targets and goals.
And Venki, Anthony, really great stuff. And this is a little bit different than what we do for some of these shows, but people have been asking for content like this, more thought-provoking / thought leadership, and so hopefully you guys liked it. Lots of really great comments, so thanks for pushing those out. So great content. This is really thought-provoking. One guy, Chandra, said, "Hey, this is quite helpful. We should take you up for budget requests." So,
yeah, here to help.
So really do appreciate that. And again, everyone, this is being recorded. I'll push this out tomorrow. I'll send everybody an email that showed up and that couldn't make it, but feel free to share it with others. We do have some shows coming up in the next couple of weeks. Really excited about those as well. Some of those will be more specific around enhancements or new pieces of the product. Just as a reminder, we are sponsoring Data Driven, a modern day management conference. Would love for our community to come to that. I put the link already in the comments, so feel free to register there.
I'll be there, Chris. You're gonna be there because it's like right next to your house or whatever. But Venki, you'll be there too.
I'll be there.
Great, we'll be there. So if you love this or hated this or have a better idea or just want to chat, we'll be there.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for coming. Really do appreciate it. Please take the survey at the end. Your feedback is a gift and very helpful for future and making these better. So thank you everyone. And Venki and Anthony, thank you so much.